there, writer rebels. Have you ever been overwhelmed by the amount of things that authors have to do these days, from promotion to maintaining their careers? Well, if you plan to succeed, maybe you should join me and get a few hints on how to make that just a little bit easier. Welcome everyone to my channel. It is me, Scarlett Kol. This week we're going to talk about planning to succeed. There's a bit of a misconception about what planning is, and a lot of people out there think that it is nothing but stickers and fancy planners. Well, there is that aspect of it, and I do love myself a good sticker or a really, really great marker. But if you spend a little bit of time planning in certain areas, you might be able to free yourself some more time to write, or maybe just take off a little bit of that author stress. So I'm going to talk about basically a few different areas where you could spend some time planning to make your things a little bit easier in your author life. If you would like a bit of a deeper dive on any of these things, I would totally be willing to do that and make a video devoted to them especially. So just leave those in the comments and I will work that into my schedule and get you a more in-depth video. Okay, so I'm a bit of an A-type personality, so I do like to plan. I use a Kanban board, and I have used the HB90 course that's offered by Sarah Cannon to get a lot of my author house in order. I will talk a little bit more about that course a little bit later in one of my areas that you can plan in, but it has helped me quite a bit. And I do understand not everybody can go completely planaholic like I kind of have. I'm not as in-depth as some people. But taking some time to plan some things in your life may give you a little bit of extra time, plus it will actually help you with success with your books. A lot of these things that I tap into not only will give you extra time, but will allow you to give you a little bit of foresight on where you're going and where your path is. So let's get into the things that we can start planning for, and hopefully some of these will ring true to you. Like the writing process itself, we have plotters and we have pantsers and we have, planters, the ones in the middle. And just like planning, we have people in both ends of the spectrum. But even when you are a pantser, there's definite benefits to sometimes going back to outline when you're editing. It doesn't mean just because you're one way, you can't be another, or you can't pick up small pieces of that mentality or lifestyle to make your life a little bit easier. All right, so the first one I wanted to talk about is planning your social media. Being an author these days requires you to be on social media typically in about some aspect. Some people are masters of everything, and some people want to stick with one or two different platforms that they're comfortable with. Personally, I like to stick with only a couple of platforms because it is a lot of work, but the more platforms you have, obviously, the more work that's going to be. So although your social media can be reactive and more a day in the life kind of stuff, sometimes a little bit of planning can make things a little bit more effective for you and a lot easier to manage. Why does this matter? Sometimes there's periods in your life where you're away and you don't get to be on your social media. If you have that stuff planned in advance, it's going to take a little bit less time to be able to put that content out there. Or if you've potentially scheduled it, which I'll talk about in a minute, then those posts can keep coming even though you're not totally prepared, or you're busy at your day job, or you're doing something else, and you're still maintaining that contact with your followers. Plus, I've seen situations with various authors where they write relatively quickly and then it's like, oh yeah, I had a book come out yesterday. Obviously, you want to be pumping that up. So if you are planning your social media, you have the opportunity to get people invested and interested in those books before they happen. Plus, you can obviously take advantage of things that are happening in the world, various holidays, or if something's happened politically or whatever, depending on the content of your book. So there's various ways that you can plan your social media, but one of the things that I like to do is I have something called my social media calendar, and it's not anything fancy. I basically just took a binder and I put one of my book covers on the front, and then essentially I just took a little thing made social media calendar, and inside is all of my calendars for every single month. At the beginning of every month, I will sit down and I will write out anything that's coming up. Do I have a book release coming up? Do I have a sale coming up for any of my books that I want to mention? Do I have any events that are coming up? Sometimes I will celebrate some of my characters' birthdays if I've written those birthdays in there. Maybe you are a thriller or horror writer. You obviously probably want to capitalize on that Halloween market. So if any of that stuff is coming up, you might want to plan ahead on your social media. But one of the other reasons to plan is because you don't want to be pushing your books down everyone's throat all the time. As much as social media is very useful for selling books and for getting connections with your audience, the connections you make with your audience aren't necessarily going to be through a, hey, this is my teaser, buy my book kind of post. It's going to be stuff that's, might be personal or something that people can connect with. So if you take a look at a month at a glance, which is what I like to do, you can see where you are pushing things a little bit too hard. Obviously, if you have a book release, the days surrounding that are probably going to be a little sales heavy, but you want to make sure that you are providing a balanced approach. By being able to look at your month at a glance, you're going to be able to see if you have pockets that are a little sales heavy, or if you've gone several weeks where you really haven't mentioned your books. As much as you do want to make a connection with people, you do want to mention that you have books periodically as well. And if you haven't been doing it for several weeks, then maybe there's something that you should incorporate there as well. Like I said, I do use a month at a glance, and I like to have the full year because sometimes I will think of things ahead of time. Like I said, if you have a release that's coming up, like I have a release in November, so if I've already started noting down some things around that release time, that's probably going to be important for me to mention when I should probably put teasers out and stuff like that. So I'm not doing it at the last minute. Also, knowing that that's coming up, the next time that I go in to make graphics for something, I tend to use BookBrush. I can talk about that on another video if people are interested. But when I go in to make graphics, if I know that that's coming up, I can make those graphics right away or teasers because I already have that book ready and it's already ready to go. So I can have those ready, and when it comes time to be posting that stuff on social media, it's already sitting there, and I'm not racing the morning of or the night before trying to get teasers and everything ready because I know that I'm going to need them coming up. You know that Halloween comes every year, and if you are going to be an author that writes paranormal or horror, you probably want to do something that ties that in. So when you have some time earlier in the year, earlier in the month or whatever, you can take time to do those graphics. In terms of scheduling, I sometimes schedule and I sometimes don't. There's a lot of programs out there that you can use to schedule, and they will save you a ton of time. If I know I have a release or a promotion, I will probably set those up for the day of that. So I make sure that I get, hey, my book's on 99-cent sale, or hey, this book just came out, here's the link, all that sort of stuff set up ahead of time. So that way on release day, if I'm busy or if I'm answering other emails or if I'm working my day job, all that stuff's still coming out when it should. However, I only usually schedule on Sundays or on the weekend prior to the week coming up. Sometimes I'll get a little bit of ahead if I take vacation, but I don't get too far ahead of myself. Why do I not get too far ahead of myself? Because I want to make sure that everything is timely. If I've taken a recent picture, then I want to make sure it's on my social media, then I'm going to want to incorporate it in for that week. The other thing to be very wary of, I guess, is what's happening in the world. If you've booked out 6 months of your social media, that may make things a whole lot simpler. But what if something comes up that just doesn't really resonate? If you are scheduling your social media and you had a bunch of posts come out that day, it may make you look very insensitive, or not even so much insensitive that you do not support that cause, even if it's something that's very near and dear to your heart because you didn't turn it off. So scheduling is a very useful tool, but you have to be very cautious with it, as you don't want to get into a situation where you are either supporting or not supporting something that means something to you or is very important to you or could be viewed as insensitive. That might not be your intention, but obviously the people that are seeing it in real time. They don't know that you planned that 3 months ago. They're seeing it as you posted it this morning. This is what is top of mind for you. So you would probably want to make sure you're not getting yourself into those situations. So even if you are scheduling out in advance, I do recommend double checking and taking a look at those things periodically to make sure that everything is still in line with what you want to do. There's a lot of ways that you can get a little bit ahead on that social media, and so it's not going to be as cumbersome. One thing I will suggest though is, even if you are planning your social media ahead of time, if you do want to make a connection with your followers, then it's probably very useful also to log in on those days to answer comments or like or heart various different things. You might not be able to get to it as soon as the post is up, but if you're just posting things and people are commenting and you aren't responding to anything, then it really doesn't come across as genuine. So you need to make sure that you are balancing time savings with who you really want to be represented as online. The next thing you can plan is you can plan your promotions. So what do I mean by promotions? This could be sales that you're involved in, if you're planning to put your book on sale at some point, if you have new releases coming up. By having all of those things laid out for you in, say, a yearly calendar or a 6-month calendar, you can maximize your usefulness on these sorts of things. Like I said, there's been situations where I've had a sale come up and I've forgotten about it. So I haven't done a lot of promotion on it, and I'm really not maximizing the amount of sales that I could be getting for that. If you have a couple of free days, if you're in Kindle Unlimited, you're gonna wanna try and get as many downloads as possible so that people are gonna read through your series. If you aren't being on top of those promotions and letting people know about them, they're not gonna see them. One of my earliest mistakes as an author is just marketing as I went. I would basically just pick up anything that I could, and I would go in this promo and that promo and that promo. First off, I would forget about things because I would sign up for way too much and not really know what is happening. 2, I would overlap things and I would end up being in more than one promotion at the same time, and then I'm dividing my attention as to what I'm promoting, what book I'm promoting, and how this is all gonna work. Plus, by planning your promotions ahead of time and knowing what you're planning to get into, then it's going to give you the time to build those things up, and you're going to make sure that you aren't using the same books all the time. If your book is constantly on sale for 99 cents, that could be a strategy, but it usually works a little bit more impactfully if you have a higher price book and then you put it on sale only every so often, because people are more likely to pick it up. However, if you want to be at 99 cents all the time, that's a whole other thing. But if you don't, you're going to have a problem if you're in promotion after promotion after promotion with that same book. Also, after a while, being in the same promotions with the same books aren't going to have the impact that they would have before. If you have a particularly big backlist, or if you're starting to build your backlist, you're going to want to alternate the books that you're putting into promotions and then the ones that you're pushing. If you have 3 or 4 different series, you don't want to push the same series all the time. You want to make sure that you're breathing life back into those old backlist titles. So being able to sit down and, like I said, take 6 months or a year and plan the types of promotions that you're going to do. And it might be not anything specific at this point. Maybe you know that you want to promote your Sexy Cop series in August. Well, you might not know exactly which promotion you're going to use there, but you're going to plan out that month that you are going to push that particular book or series. Knowing that in advance, you aren't going to book your Sexy Cop stuff in July and September because you're going to work on your Sexy Firefighter series or your Handsome Doctor series in September, and it's going to get a little bit more even push throughout the year instead of constantly just pushing that same book. Planning promotions also allows you to avoid mistakes by, like I said, booking more than one promo at the same time, not remembering dates and telling your audience about it, or not providing a well-balanced approach to your entire portfolio. All right, so the next thing is planning your releases and your writing schedule. I've kind of talked about this a little bit before on how to plan writing projects, and you can check this out here, or you can check it out here because I did do it on a vlog, plus I also did it on my live for the authortube writing retreats. So basically what that means is 2 different things. First off, planning your releases. It's very similar to planning your promotions in that knowing when your books are going to be coming out. Obviously, if you're doing something like a rapid release schedule or you release very frequently, you probably have a really good idea. However, if you aren't doing that, or you release a little bit more infrequently, or if you're working between series, it can be very important to plan your releases and knowing when they are supposed to be coming out and which books you want to put out in what order. Obviously, if you are running a series, are you going to work your way through that series, releasing all of the books before you move on to the next one? Are you going to alternate series? And how is that going to impact your readership? This is going to be a personal decision and a personal choice based on how your readership reacts to you releasing various different things and how you write and all of those little nuances that make each writer different. So now that you've sat there and kind of have your pie in the sky dream of this is what I want to do and this is how my series is going to play out, these are how I want to release my books, then you need to go back and go, what can I actually do? If you plan on releasing 3 books in a year, okay, but you're a very slow writer, then you can have the greatest plan in the world of what your releases are going to be. But if you can't actually make that happen, you're either going to stress yourself out trying to make it happen, or it's not going to happen and you're going to disappoint yourself and your readership, which is going to be very stressful. So if you've used my advice and figured out how fast you can write and what your actual writing capacity is, then you should be able to figure out exactly how long it's going to take you to write a book, or in my preferred method, the worst case scenario on how long it's going to take you to write a book. When you look at that, you may see that you can't release a book every 3 months because you don't write that fast. Or maybe you can write a book in 2 months, which either gives you extra time or you can change your schedule and move that up. But without knowing exactly what your capacity is for writing, you're going to have all of these plans and dreams that just aren't going to work out. The other reason why it's really, really important to plan your writing is it allows you to get in with other contractors. So let's say you have an editor that you particularly like to work with. I'm sure you're not their only client. So if you want to get on their schedule, you're probably going to need to book them in advance. If you are booking them in advance, you need to know how long it's going to take you to write that book. If you tell them you're going to be ready in 2 months, but it takes you 5 months to write that book, then obviously that's going to be a problem. If you have a particular cover artist, some cover artists will book up over a year in advance. That one you can play with a little bit because obviously you can have the cover before you're finished the book, but you do need to be conceptually ready for that book. And if you are doing paperbacks and you aren't ready for the blurb, or you know exactly how long your book's going to be, you could be on a wait list for several months depending on the artist to get that stuff done for your release. So although we would like everything to work out perfectly, and the more you start doing things, the better off you are at estimating your own time, but there's basically kind of 2 things that could happen other than a perfect day, and that is you are going to not be able to finish your book in time for those contractors, and you could either lose deposits, which could be really impacting how much money you're making on the book, or maybe it's money that you don't really have to spare. Or you could lose out working with some of these people because if you're constantly missing your deadlines, then you're basically going to be looked at as unprofessional. And if they aren't used to dealing with that and it's messing with their schedule, they aren't going to allow you to book anymore. The other aspect of that is that you come to the end of the book and you have to wait for your editors or cover artists. And maybe that's okay. If you've planned your releases really, really far in advance and you already have a backlog of books coming and you're ready to go, then you essentially could write the book and then book your editor and book your cover artist. But essentially, that could be a few months down the road. And if you're expecting a release very shortly, then either you're gonna have to go with somebody else, or you might end up with a rush job that's not exactly what you want. Whereas if you had planned when you plan to release things and how quickly it takes you to write things, you could have booked those things out, even with some buffer time, to make sure that you're going to hit your release schedule. There's a lot of writers out there that don't work that way. Essentially, they're going to write a book. When they are done with the book, they're going to get it edited. When it's done, it comes out. And all power to them. It's probably way less stressful to do it that way. However, there's a lot of authors out there that are looking at it more of like a business or completely reliant on that income for their books. And if they aren't appropriately planning out into the future as to how they want to release things and getting all of their ducks in a row on all the things that they need for release, then they could end up with problems. So having all that stuff laid out will make things easier to plan ahead. It'll help with your social media and promotion. It will help figure out how long it's going to take you to write a book so that you can let your readers know. It can also really help with your stress level in the sense that you're not sitting there just wishing that you're going to be done. If you know it takes you 6 months to write a book, there's no reason at 3 months to being like, hey, I should be done. No, it takes me 6 months to write a book. Maybe if you're getting on 8 to 9 months, then that stress might get back in there. But if you know what your writing limitations are and you've set a reasonable release schedule based on what you are physically capable of, then you are going to be able to complete those things. You are going to feel accomplished and you're going to feel a lot less behind the 8 ball. You don't need to be public about this just because you are planning out when your releases are. They don't need to be on pre-order if that's something that's going to stress you out because you might need a couple of months on the other end if it doesn't work out. You don't even need to tell your significant other or your mom or any of that. You can just write it down on a piece of paper and work towards that. It's not saying, nothing is set in stone. You can obviously change that if it's not going to work out. You can move things around. Maybe a series is going to take off and you want to release all of those ahead of time, or maybe you want to make your readers wait so you can build up some of that momentum. You can do various different things with that, but obviously any time that you can take stress away from yourself by making things easier and putting it more into a automatic process, the better off you're going to be. The next thing that is very important to plan is to plan for downtime. Some authors don't need as much downtime as others, and some do. Some people have more vacations than others. Some people have more family events than others. But one of the things that a lot of authors, and myself included, forget to plan for is downtime. After I've released a book and I've done a bunch of marketing, my brain's a little fried. After I've done year end at work, my brain's a little fried. So when I'm planning things, I need to make sure that I'm planning weeks of downtime in there. One of the things that I found as a big flaw in a lot of my plans is I would just assume that, after year end and tax season, I could just jump right into the next book and I'm going to have that finished by the middle of May, 2 weeks after like my most stressful time of year. Well, that never really works for me. I have to plan in a couple of weeks of not writing and letting myself just, relax and de-stress and do all of those different things. Also, you can always head out into burnout if you are constantly writing and you don't allow yourself any downtime in between. Like I said, everyone is different. Maybe you just need a day and a glass of sangria and you are good to go. Or maybe you need a month off. Or maybe you are one of those people who needs 3 months off or 6 months off between books because they're very emotionally exhausting for you. You need to figure out what you can handle, but if you are committing yourself to writing through those periods instead of actually planning yourself some downtime, it's going to be a little bit more stressful. For instance, if you know every summer you're going to be gone in August, then assuming that you're going to write every day and that you're going to finish this book over August is just going to stress you out. So that's not going to help anything. And then when you do try to write that book and try to catch up on these plans that just didn't make any sense, which is why you need to plan your releases and your writing schedule, then you are just going to end up in this situation where you're constantly running behind the 8 ball and constantly stressed out. A lot of people find it very difficult to write when they're stressed out. That's making the whole problem all that much worse. So one of the things I will definitely recommend is figure out how much downtime you need typically between books and plan for it. Know that after a big marketing push, you're going to need a few days. After a convention, you might need to sleep it off for a couple of days. You aren't going to jump right back into your manuscript. Maybe you are that person who can, but if you're not, you're just going to disappoint yourself if you don't plan for that downtime. And the last thing, of course, is you can plan everything. Like I said, I do love my planners and my stickers, and I use a Kanban board, which essentially is a goal setting and momentum type of tool. You can see a lot of videos. You can just Google that. But one of the things that I found the most useful was I took a course offered by another authortuber here called Sarah Cannon on her page called Heart Breathings. If you go over to Heart Breathings, and I'll include the links in the description box below so you can check out her channel. She does offer a lot of free videos on planning and how to organize your time and do those sorts of things. One of the things she also does offer is something called her HB90 course, or Heart Breathings 90, and it is a 90-day planning course. And what this planning course involves is a lot of these things that I've kind of talked about. These were things that the things that I've talked about are things that I was already doing before I took her HB90 course. But I did learn a lot of things about myself and a lot of things in terms of how to organize tasks and how to make the most of your time. I took the HB90 course not this past December, but the one before. That last year I wrote the most I have ever written in an entire year. My circumstances did not change. I was actually just as busy at my day job as I normally did. I didn't get any extra vacation. I didn't have any extra time to do things, but I did write a lot. I did publish more than I've ever published. or even if I didn't, I had books that I'm publishing this year that I wrote last year. And I was very successful at making that extra time to do those things, just using a lot of the tips and techniques that she uses in her course. If you are interested in actually taking the course, I am an affiliate with that. I know this sounds a little bit like a sales push, but I typically will not talk about anything or endorse anything that I do not truly believe in. I did take the course when it was 3 days long. It is now a week long. Sarah is a fantastic teacher, and she's so open and warm and just willing to help people that you just get that energy coming off of her, which is great. It's completely video based essentially. So I do tend to work very well with video-based learning, which was really good. You have lifetime access to the course, so you can go back at any time to do that. I really liked her HB90 planning course just in terms of the format. I did like that she was also a writer, so she kind of got the writing stuff, and there is definitely a writing slant to her examples and everything that she uses in the course. But one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about the 90-day planning process, which I didn't really think about at the time, was it's this nice way to reboot every 90 days. I'm one of those people who, makes their New Year's resolutions and expects that this is going to be the best year ever and all of that sort of stuff, and then get around to February or March and start to lose momentum. The beauty thing about 90-day planning, whether you're doing it with Sarah or on another platform, I know other people teach 90-day planning courses, and there's 90-day planning planners that you can use. The nice thing about that is that you kind of get that refresh every 3 months. So basically, when you're just getting to that point where you're starting to lose momentum in month 3, you start over and you check back in with everything that you've been doing and making sure that everything is in alignment with what you want. And it really helps you moving forward. That refresh and that restart is massive in terms of a mental boost to get you started and get you moving into the next quarter. I also find that I'm not sitting on stagnant goals, because I don't know about you, but I set goals in January and then I come to December and it's like, well, I didn't do this, and not because I just didn't accomplish it. It's because it's no longer relevant to me and it doesn't make sense for me anymore. So one of the beauty things about this is that you're constantly re-looking at those goals and seeing what still makes sense and what doesn't. Like I said, I super endorse this course, and if you are interested, I do have the link below. I believe it's open for the next week or so, and if you want to join that class, then that would be fantastic. Like I said, you do have lifetime access. And if you are interested in it, but you definitely have questions, you can leave them in the comment box below, or you can pop me an email. I believe all of my links on my social media and my email are on the about for this channel, so you can definitely send me a message or ask me any questions about it, and I would be happy to answer them for you. I've taken a lot of classes either with publishing or planning or various different things in my life, and Sarah's classes are ones that I will actually endorse and are fully supportive of the content and the delivery that they are given in. So I don't give that away very lightly. I think my reputation is very important to me, so I'm not just going to tell you about anything, but I think this is something that is very, very valuable. And if it is not something that you want to do and you just kind of want to get the basics of it, and you would like to just dip your toe a little bit into that sort of concept and more of planning, like I said, just check out her Heart Breathings channel, and there are actually a ton of videos already about some of her planner setups and how she uses her Kanban board and everything as well. Obviously, it's not the full course and everything that goes into it, but it is a decent refresher, and those are free of charge because they're just here on YouTube. So hopefully you learned something about planning today, and there's various different things that you can plan for, and hopefully it will make your author life a whole lot smoother. If you enjoyed this video and would like others like it, make sure you are hitting that thumbs up. And if you would like to subscribe, I would love to have you. So make sure you're hitting that red subscribe bar and the notification bell so you get notified every time I put up a video. Hopefully you have a great week, and I will see you on Thursday.